much.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. I'm Steve Belyeu, and I'm the host and creator of a local award-winning podcast called the Night Out Podcast, where we travel to supposed haunted places and hidden haunts, and we just do a deep dive in historical research, cross-examining witness testimony, and we present that in a story-forward way on the podcast. And we feature a lot of unique historic haunted places here in Austin and the surrounding area.
I love it, by the way. It's a great podcast. I'm Owen Egerton, and I'm a writer and director of horror, and I write novels and short stories that are sometimes horror, usually a bit different. Yeah, that's pretty much it. My last film was Mercy Black that I made with Blumhouse and Universal.
And it's great.
Oh, thanks. We're going to keep complimenting each other now.
Yeah. My name is Aaron B. Koontz. The B is important because there's an imposter Aaron Koontz out there. I'm also a writer, director, and producer. I've made a few films, a lot of them are on Shudder right now, and we can talk about those, I'm sure, at some point. And then we have 4 or 5 other movies that are coming out in the next 9 months. I run Paper Street Pictures, which is an Austin-based kind of genre production company. And then I have another company called Blood Oath that does consulting to help young filmmakers find the resources to get films made that otherwise wouldn't get made. And we've been doing that for about a year. Yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you. I'm Nicole Riccaro. I have a podcast as well, The Real Ghosts of podcast, kind of like The Real Housewives of, because we're sassy. And so, yeah, I'm a paranormal researcher, investigator, and also the medium of the group. And I work pretty closely with Steven's medium, Sarah. We're good friends.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. We have a good mix. First, for the horror film genre for you guys, what brought y'all into horror? What was it? Was there a moment? Was there a film when you were a kid, or just scary stories growing up that really drew you into the horror genre?
Yeah, funny enough, career-wise, I didn't start in horror. Career-wise, I was writing for Hollywood in comedy, and it was doing rewrites for Sony and Disney and Fox and everything like that on really goofy comedies. And I was always I'd be assigned by my writing partners, you need to go home and watch The Wedding Crashers. You haven't seen that. I'm okay, and I'd go home and watch Return of the Living Dead Part 3 instead. When I was a kid, I watched early. There's a few things early on. I remember watching Night of the Living Dead on TV, and The Fly, the old The Fly with Vincent Price, and being freaked the fuck out by it in a really great way. And then I remember video stores. I used to go to the video store, and it wasn't what I rented. It was the covers, the art, and I would go through those covers and I'd read the back of all those, and I was like, why would I watch anything else? I don't need to see, Willie be free or anything. I just want to watch all these really weird horror movies. And so eventually at some point I was like, I kind of took myself out of doing horror and film because I didn't think I was cool enough. I was like, no one's gonna let me do it. And then I was like, why not just go for it and do it? Being able to work in horror is a real treat. But yeah, I think it's, and maybe the film that maybe really drove, I was maybe as a teenager, maybe 15 or 16, was Halloween 4. And I know
Watched that last night.
Oh really? I don't know. There's no reason necessarily that I freaking love Halloween 4. I watch it all the time, and I adored that movie. For me, I was like, and I find when I'm writing scripts that Halloween 4, that's just like a scene in Halloween 4. It's in my DNA. It's a weird parent to have, Halloween 4, but I adore that film.
The mask. The mask is the only problem with Halloween 4.
Yeah, it is.
The only problem. It just looks it's the worst of all the masks.
It's the worst of all.
But other than that, it's great.
H2O.
Well, yeah, we don't know. Yeah. And also, when Whitley does jump over that kid, it does give you some moments.
It's a heartthrob moment.
It is, and that Michael Jackson song, which.
We also have that movie where the orca starts killing people.
Yeah,
It's Orca, which is great.
the original Free Willy.
So I mean,
Yeah.
Once you see Orca, you realize Willy should not be free.
Yeah.
Lock Orca up.
Yeah, Free Willy's a prequel. Yeah. So I had an interest. I mean, I grew up in a very strong Christian home. I wasn't allowed to watch anything horror or beyond PG. I had to sneak, my brother snuck around Playboys, I snuck around Fangorias, and I would put them under my bed and all that kind of stuff because I wasn't allowed to indulge in any of that. And my grandmother got HBO for free. And I used to go to her house, which is a weird time, when it would come through the certain static channels and you could just see it. And I would go there after school every day because my mom did taxes with my grandmother. And I would bring VHS tapes in and just record because I couldn't watch it if they caught me. So I would record the whole time. And I would leave a tape in overnight and then come back and see whatever would happen. And this was a time when on HBO, after 8 p.m. is when they would show the R-rated movies or the horror films. So that's what it ended up being. I just had no idea that I could experience the feelings of that. So I remember watching Alien, and I watched a movie called Shocker, the Stephen King thing. And just, they all kind of changed me. And then I think it was Nightmare on Elm Street was one of the ones that really kind of, the dreamscape and stuff. And, excuse me, just the way that it kind of immersed you into this world and how I could feel this way. I just had no idea that you could have that feeling watching a movie. So then I would just take my video camera around and I would, lock my brother in the closet or scare him. My poor brother was tortured. And I would torture him all the time and I wanted to see his reaction. I just wanted to see what would happen when I scared him and I would record it. And it's torture. It's horrible. And he's got problems today and I feel bad for it. So, but I definitely contributed to that. Love him. But that, I just realized that that's what I was kind of chasing. So I think in a way I'm still kind of chasing that. When our films come out, I will sneak around if it's playing in the theater if I'm that fortunate. And I've bought tickets to my own movie and just turned around and watched the crowd to see their reactions and stuff. So I'm still kind of looking for those little junk moments. So yeah, that's pretty much where I started from here.
Okay. And this question basically that goes out to all of you because it was phrased as, you have a favorite subgenre of horror, but I'm open up to what is, one of if your top 3 favorite horror. And for any of you, you can think about this. I'll just throw it out there. My favorite horror movie is The Thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually one of my top as well. I had to do they had this massive chart and it took me an hour to do. And it tells you which is your favorite movie because it goes through every subgenre. And I was like, no, this won't be able to tell. But I do love The Thing. It's one of my all-time favorites. Well, it ended up winning the whole chart. It was over 500 titles I had to do. And I was like, so Thing is number 1 on my apparent chart thing, but there's so many subgenres that I have favorites in each subgenre.
Right.
Yeah. Obviously, being a paranormal enthusiast, it's tough because the paranormal movies are kind of not that great sometimes. The Changeling really is one of my favorites for that subgenre. And then it's not necessarily ghost paranormal, but it's supernatural. It's Rosemary's Baby is
Right.
one of my top. So those are kind of some of my favorites.
Man, that is hard. I'd say there's some that kind of go to in my mind. It's similar to the Changeling in some ways. The Haunting, which is the original The Haunting of Hill House film version,
Yeah.
not with Owen Wilson, and it's that film haunts me. And then The Shining. The Shining is one that continually haunts me again and again. I also love a more recent one, Sinister. Scott Egerton in Cargill, who lives here in town, and I adore that movie. I also find that it's just seasonal a little bit. It used to be what are my favorites? But I'm in this season now where I'm really enjoying horror movies that have fun, that lean into the fun. I love Hereditary or something like that, but I'm not rewatching Hereditary. Tonight, I'm not gonna be what's some yummy fun times? Let's just fast forward to the pole scene. Instead, I'm more likely now to put in Friday the 13th part, Jason Lives part 6. Yeah, right, because it's so fun. And maybe that's it's just a season right now where I'm I'm gonna watch Bride of Chucky. I'm not saying Bride of Chucky is a better film. I don't need to. But that's the one.
It's great.
I'm hungering for the fun.
Well, it's interesting because I guess we're just going in order. So.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think I just, so Letterboxd, if people use Letterboxd, so they reached out to me and wanted me to write a list for them, just do your favorite horror films and write this whole story or whatever, and they pick filmmakers to do these things. And I was like, yeah, oh my God, this is what an honor, this is really cool, it's going to be on Letterboxd and they're going to feature me. And I spent all summer. I couldn't do it. I kept going back. I'm sorry, I can't do this. Like, I'm like, I have another movie coming up, so I got to focus on that. And then I come back, I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. So I had to change the list that I wrote about just horror films that inspired me because there's real. I don't know that I can order them. I know that like Jaws, which I have a tattoo of, that is a horror film in my mind. It's a monster movie in every way. And I didn't know it was a horror film as a kid. So that would probably go back to the original question as well. Because I was obsessed with that movie, I just did not know what that movie was, in that way. But that's what made me curious about filmmaking in general. But yeah, so Jaws, The Thing, Evil Dead 2, would be one. I think, I think there's a lot of, but again, what I ended up writing about, was horror with heart. And my idea was I want horror films that can either have fun or horror comedies and that kind of thing. And we're leaning into that. Like our films, we're really trying to say, like, what is the heart of this horror film? Or how do you find the soul, the comedy, like something there that kind of connects you? So, and again, I love Hereditary. I love Ari Aster. I love those types of movies. And, but I think right now, just especially post-pandemic or current pandemic, I'm leaning toward just wanting these, escapes. And I think that's what we're trying to make in the movies that we're producing. Emily Hagan's a local filmmaker. We made a movie with her in Toronto. Unfortunately, couldn't make it here. And that's called Bird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, squirrel. That makes more sense. Or demon squirrel. Oh, now we're talking. Now we could write something.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, now I completely lost my train of thought. So yeah.
You're talking about Emily's movie.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Emily's movie. But that's called Sorry About the Demon. And we talk about, it's basically a John Hughes version of The Conjuring, like a James Wan movie. And it's like, how do you mix those two things together? And that's what we try to do. And it's got a ton of heart, and I think it's going to make people, it's a little bit of a, it'll kind of make people cry, even possibly in certain moments, and we take pride in stuff like that. So, yeah. So, I don't know if that's the most convoluted answer possible, but there you have it.
It's okay. Jaws made it so I didn't swim in the deep end for quite some time.
Yeah.
So.
For me, I really like the ones that get in your brain and make you think. And for me, the standout one, I don't know if a movie will ever be able to do this again, so challenge for you guys. But the original Blair Witch, when it first came out, the way that they marketed it, of making it seem like it was real and it was an actual documentary. Oh my god, when I saw that, I would not even go in the bathroom to brush my teeth by myself for weeks. So that one, I think it just was really immersive and made you feel like, oh god, this is real. Is it? I don't know. So the ones that mess with your brain.
It is a wild thing when we've got all our defenses up, right? Because we're pretty intelligent people and we've watched films and we get it and we're we know the tropes and we have our defenses up. Anytime a narrative comes our way and sneaks around our defenses, oh yeah, but you didn't wall up the wall down there. And you're oh my god, it got in. That's pretty great. Yeah, and Blair Witch definitely did that.
I use Blair Witch as an example. It kind of like a precursor to Blair Witch was I teach a course at ACC on podcasting, and we talk about Orson Welles' War of the Worlds and what they did.
Yeah.
They scared a lot of people because they just pretended like it was a real broadcast.
Yeah.
And then I thought it was genius, when Blair Witch did that, because I was probably around your age. I think we're about the same age. I was in the same boat. It hadn't come out that the news actually still thought it was real.
Yeah.
And so when I went to go see it, I was only 11. And I had an older friend that's 18. He's like, we'll get in. And I was like, yes. And I did it, and then I was like, that was a mistake. I was traumatized. But yeah, I agree. The ones that get in your head, the clever way that they can go around those tropes and just kind of break that barrier that we have already set up, those are always fun. Yeah.
One of the first Gothic novels ever written, I'm blanking on the guy's name, Lewis, I think is his last name, but this is back in the 18th century, I think. He wrote a book called The Monk. And it was, an evil monk and sneaking over to the nunnery and the awful monk things. When he came out with this book, and this is before Frankenstein, it was like one of the early Gothic novels, and he was like, oh, I didn't write this, I found it. I found it in a cave next to a monastery. And it was the first found footage, this novel.
Yeah. That's